All right, everyone. Thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure speaking with all of you. My name is Ryan Valente, co-founder of Reside Properties, alongside with my business partner, Madison Chinnick, who's here today, who I'm sure most of you will meet. And here to talk about building multiplexes and the differences between building a single-family home. I'm sure most of you are wondering what the timeline is on this project and what you're going to spend. Those are pretty much the two main questions that you need to know if you're considering investing in these. So from my experience, timeline in building these things can vary anywhere between 10 to 18 months. Now this can vary depending on the complexity of the build you're doing. Some of the projects we've done have been substantial renovations where we've bought existing lots in the downtown core that needed a lot of work. So we're doing underpinning, we're doing massive additions, structural work, rebuilding the floors. So that can add complexity, that can add some time to your build. In terms of cost, what we've seen, and this can vary between a substantial renovation or a new build, can be anywhere from $275 to $315 a square foot on a substantial renovation where you're kind of keeping some of the existing envelope. And that, when you're doing a new build, this can range anywhere from $350 to about $420 a square foot. There are some increased costs when you're doing a new build. Typically, when you get into new builds in the downtown core, you're looking at doing shoring because, again, they're tight sites, not a lot of access. So that can add a significant amount of cost as well. All right, so construction phases, and the pictures you see here, this is a before and after of one of our properties downtown. This was an existing semi-detached dwelling that we purchased, did a substantial renovation on it, completely gutted it, and we have 3 units in the main house here, and then there's also a laneway house in the back. The picture below is the after picture, as you can tell. So the construction phases, first thing, of course, is demolition. With a house like this, we ripped off the back of the house, ripped out the floors, rebuilt all that. Once you're done your demolition work, and that can also include shoring up load-bearing walls and whatnot. Once you're done that, then you get into your structural work. Most of these houses require underpinning, digging down the basement. That way you can get a usable unit out of your basement, making sure it's nice and bright, lots of windows, so it's a great living experience for your future tenant. So once you're done your underpinning, you can get into your framing, not dissimilar from a single family home. Once you're done your framing, then you would get into your fire separations, which is a very important part of the build that can really hold you up in the construction process. And that is the main thing kind of inspectors are looking at when they come to the property. They really scrutinize the fire separations highly. So when you're doing your fire separations, that's kind of in conjunction with your mechanical, plumbing, and electrical. In all the properties we've built, we like to maintain separate mechanical systems for each unit. That allows you to separately meter all your units. It also just allows for a better living experience for your tenant at the end of the day. Once you're done that, then you're getting into your interior finishes. So your drywall, flooring, painting, tile, all of that. And then that pretty much, that's a very high level of the construction process, but that kind of concludes it. So the differences between a multiplex and a single family home. Number one, obviously your fire separations like I touched on. Making sure those are continuous. In some cases, when you're adding additions to existing houses or doing new construction, depending on how close you are to the property lines, in some cases you may be required to build completely non-combustible construction. So that means no wood whatsoever, any combustible materials. That can substantially impact your budget, of course. So that is something to be aware of. You need to speak with your architect or designer, someone who knows the bylaws very well, because they'll be able to give you some insight on that. So that is one thing to keep in mind, of course. Next thing is your noise separation or soundproofing. There's certain minimums you're required to hit when building these. So what we find is between the joists, you have to put in Roxol or noise-proof insulation. Then you're required to do resilient channel, which is a metal channel that you would screw into your joist, and that is what you hang your drywall off. And depending on your fire separations and timing, you can either be 1 layer of fire-rated drywall, 2 layers of fire-rated drywall. That all helps with your sound. Now you can go above and beyond. You can use products like Sonopan, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with or not, but it's basically a 4x8 sheet, 3/4 of an inch thick, and it kind of helps with noise deadening. Now, we have found that kind of noise separation definitely needs some innovation. There are other things you can do, like wrapping your plumbing pipes or water lines to help with sound, so your other tenants don't hear it, but it does get quite expensive. So a lot of developers may not want to go above and beyond because it impacts your bottom line. So it's definitely an area where we could use some innovation and get some more cost-effective materials to help that process. The other thing we've tried to do with all our developments is have separate entrances, try to eliminate common areas completely, just for better layouts of the space, helps with noise between units, and it also allows you not to have secondary exits if every unit has a dedicated entrance, which we find to be just a more efficient build process. The last part is the trades. Certain trades don't know multiplex construction. It's important to have trades that do. Your trades are one of the most important part of construction, of course, and having a good relationship with them is key. And you're at the end of the day, you're relying on their knowledge to help you along with this process. So very important you have a good relationship with them and trust them. Now, some of the hurdles we've hit in permitting issues along the road, when we first started doing these developments, this was before the fourplex bylaw came into effect. This is obviously a great bylaw, and it helped us out a lot in our business. And again, touching back to your designer or architect, you definitely need one who knows this bylaw in and out, knows all the egress requirements, fire separation issues, because you can really get held up in the permitting process if you're submitting an application that's incomplete or lacking detail. When you do submit your initial application, the city's supposed to review it within 2 weeks. So if that application's not complete, at that 2-week mark, you go right back to the end of the pile. And this can really delay your project. And as most of you know, we can't afford delays in the development process because it really impacts the bottom line. Neighbors are another challenge. This just goes for any type of construction. We found that there's always some sort of issue with neighbors, and understandably, you're creating a lot of noise when building. Some neighbors better than others. Some call the city on you every day and complain a lot. So being mindful of your neighbors is also very important during construction. City trees on the property can be an issue. A lot of these projects require new sanitary lines or water lines, and having a tree anywhere on the front of your property, or especially on the city portion of your property, can significantly delay you as well, and delay the permitting process as you have to go through urban forestry to get certain approvals. Now, as you know, we have the fourplex bylaw, so you're exempt on DCs up to 4 units. So that's another challenge. A lot of the times you want to add more units, but especially with the increased DCs, and I think they just went up again in May, beginning of this month, it makes it difficult to really do more than 4 units unless you're building laneways and take advantage of the laneway DC deferral program. The other thing, as I mentioned, HVAC design, we like to have separate units, so you need a good HVAC designer that can coordinate these properly. You want to try to limit bulkheads in the space as much as possible, although typically unavoidable. Just need to make sure you have a good layout so the space is usable at the end of the day for your tenants. So that kind of concludes the differences between building a multiplex versus single-family home. Here's some info on Reside Properties. If you want to get in touch with us, we'll be around here all day. Looking forward to meeting lots of you. And we'll open it up to questions, or do you want to leave it to the panel?
Yeah, we'll do the panel.
Sure.
Now.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.